Hello, hello, hello. So I wanted to go over things that have changed since I posted my video last night about the coming week. So over the weekend, we had this crazy dump in Bitcoin. I think what really was happening there is that the market had closed by the time all the tariff news really started coming in at the close on Friday. Trump was still talking and making announcements at the close. And so things started to dip a little bit after hours, but then the stock market, even after hours, closed. And then over the weekend, Bitcoin and crypto really started to take a nosedive. And you can see here on the daily chart, it basically bottomed out here at the bottom of the range somewhere like here, right there. And so it bounced, and boy, was it a beauty. If you look at this on the 2 minute time frame, this was kind of a tough one to trade, I think, really, because it faked you out. So if you were, say you were trading this and you were watching the 2 minute EMA 12, it's riding it down. You can see it's getting more extreme. This is definitely what you want to see if you're going to be buying an extreme flush. Look at the volume increasing. And you might have thought this was the end. Like this one could have faked you out, then this one definitely could have faked you out. But I guarantee you that if I drag this back here, let's just do it right here. Yeah, so you're well beyond an ATR. It's so stretched that from the top of this candle to here is -1 ATR, and from the bottom of this candle to here is -1 ATR. So you're over 2 ATRs down, and look at the volume on this, right? And so if you were lucky, you bought this bottom, but you can see it basically, it flipped right on the end of this 2 minute candle and then flipped and went back up. But either way, when you're this stretched on an ATR and holding at the lows, it's worth a shot. And the problem is that your risk unit needs to be pretty big in case it keeps going down, right? And so you've got to, and really all you're looking for if you're taking that shot is, say you manage to get somewhere right down here. By the way, look, 9,200 is the level where it broke through. Whoops, 1 second. So right there, 9,200 is right where it stopped, right? So say you bought right around 9,200, just above 9,200. Say you got really lucky and you put your stop somewhere below that. You'd have to give it a fair amount of space just in case it kept flushing, because they can keep getting extreme at times like this. And then all you're really looking for is a bounce up to the 2 minute EMA 12, which at that point was here. So you're really only 2 to 1 on that. And then what happened in the next candle? You would have been, you could have sold half here and then you're risk free on this. But then what happens in the next one? Hold. Further down, you're like, please hold, please hold, please hold. Boom, further down. And so you would have gotten stopped here. And here's the lesson. This is why this is so hard, but another high volume candle. And it's really scary. You just got risk free and you're like, oh, dang, it went lower. It stopped me out. You have to try again. And this time it went below 92. It broke through. And now you got to think, well, the next obvious spot for support would be 91. So you got to get in somewhere here and keep your low somewhere under 91. Let's just take the same thing. What happens? Boom, back up. And you're back up to the 2 minute EMA 12 again, and you're risk free. And away you go. And here's the crazy part. Get rid of all this. What happened in the hours and time that followed from that point? We went up 12.5% from the low to the high in 20 hours. 12% bounce. That's why these things are so worthwhile, because this became this. Boom. Like, who would have thought? I mean, holding this through all that, through market open and stuff, that's crazy. That's hard. But that's why you get into those extreme lows, because you're hoping for that really good bounce. And that doesn't happen very often. And when you're looking at this in the daily time frame, you're like, well, it's bottom of range. If it holds this level here, you got to get long, because it's probably, if it does hold it, it's going to go back and test the top of the range. That's the most likely scenario. So anyway, that's what happened at Bitcoin. And then we wake up in the morning, and what's going on with SPY? this gap down. And even on ES, which was crazy, there's this huge gap. Here, look at this gap from here to here. And of course it filled the gap, right? Something is not showing up properly. Hang on. Yeah, I see now. We're in a new day here. But basically it opened here, went down further, and look at that gap. It's just, that's an enormous gap. I don't think I see that very often. And so that was a big deal, and it did go lower on the open because at the time, nobody knew what was going to happen. And by the way, so what I noticed about it was, I had said that I wasn't sure what I wanted to do. I was going to be looking at strong names to try to figure out where would be some ideal spots to buy them. And so I started going through my list right on the open, and everything was gapping down. And like I had said in my last video, I had picked these names because they were the strongest names across all the ETFs in the S&P 500, all the Spider ETFs, and these were the strongest ones, and they were all gapping down. And I was like, ooh, that's crazy. So that got me thinking about this indicator that I have, which shows you the bars here are the actually weighted ETFs, like how the sector weighted ETFs, they're advancers and decliners. And then the line here is if you equal weighted them, what would that look like? And so what this really tells you is if there's a divergence here, like here on this day, all these bars are up and the black line is down. What does that tell you? It tells you that the strongest sectors in the market were holding it up and the other sectors were weak. And what we saw in the last couple of days here on this dump and here today in the rally is they were all trading together, right? So it was across the board, things were moving together, which is generally speaking not what you want to see, right? Like not what I want to see. I want to see rotation. I want to see stuff like this where like some sectors are driving it and other ones are sort of doing their own thing or heading in another direction. So money's coming out of one sector going into another. This, everything moving together, is every money coming out of every sector. And this, everything moving together, is all the money coming back into every sector, everything moving together. And so I was watching this throughout the day today on like the 2-minute time frame, and I was like, whoa, that's kind of weird. Like everything is moving together on this move up. So I think the move up is to be believed, right? Because all the money is just flowing back in. And so this actually got me into some day trades here today where I might talk about those in a little bit. But I had a couple of good trades because I basically bought the dip on XLF, which was setting a higher low on the 2-minute time frame here on volume right there. So I saw this volume bar on this higher low here on the 2-minute time frame. And so I bought as it rallied out of that, and I held all the way to these highs, and I sold up here somewhere when this rolled over. So that was a great trade. And I even bought NVIDIA, even though NVIDIA was generally weaker than everything else. NVIDIA, see how it was holding down at the lows here, but NVIDIA had gapped down, was holding lower than all the other Mag 7. But then once the market opened, it just didn't go lower. It just kept going in this range. And meanwhile, while this was oscillating sideways, I was looking at QQQ, and QQQ was going down. And there was a bunch of other things going down. And I generally have this belief, which is if something can't go lower, it must go higher, and vice versa. If something can't go higher, it must go lower. But this thing was already coming down into like down after hours, gapping down in the morning, and then just sitting there. And I was like, if it can't go down, it must go up, right? And so I bought some mid-range over here, and I bought a little bit more down here, and then it rallied. And when it broke out here, I sold some into this bounce, threw in my stop down there, and then let it ride up here until it broke this low here. Like it started hitting a low here, third time here, and then it went up again, and I sold some more there, and then I stopped out of it here. Because generally, the more a level gets tested, the more likely it's going to break. And of course, it did happen, rolled over. But what I didn't do is stay engaged, because there was a nice falling wedge here for hourly higher low that then pushed to another higher high, and then was trying to head higher after hours. I digress. Anyway, a couple of good trades. that were not what I was planning over here to look at this stuff. So I still actually do intend to look at that stuff, but now it's become a different thing because the market has basically changed. Now, I didn't buy these with size. These weren't like hold on to them swing trades, because I was pretty spooked by the fact that all of the stocks in the market were basically gapping down overnight. And then, of course, what happened? Well, it was announced that the Mexico tariff had been pushed by 30 days. That was mid-morning. And then after the close today, if you look at the QQQ, you can see what happened there. Right here, it was announced that Canada's tariffs got pushed by 30 days because it turns out that Canada has tariffs they can put on the US too. And so there was some negotiation that happened there. I don't know, don't really care. I just care about the market. Okay, so there's this unwind that has now happened. So all these fears that were baked into the market this morning with the gap down have now basically been, put off at least for 30 days. But, if 30 days goes by, who knows what's going to happen between now and then. But people are now like, oh, market could be bullish again. And so this puts us in a weird spot. And so I'm looking at here, if we go back to the Qs, this is my indicator that shows price oscillating around the 4-hour EMA 12 and the highs and the lows of that range. And really what I'm showing you here is we're basically stuck in this range, and we have been since back in November, right? And so we've been up, we've been down, we've been up, we've been down, we've been up, we've been down. And now we're seeing these oscillations become faster, where we're top of the range, bottom of the range the next day. 4 days later, top of the range, next day, bottom of the range. And so I think we're heading for some sort of climax sometime soon. And I actually thought over the weekend especially when Bitcoin started to dump, I was like, oh, good. The rinse is finally going to happen. And I was very eager for us to break down out of this range for a lot of people who are over levered, for people who are who keep buying the dip. Like I want some fear, because sitting here at the top of the market and trying to push highs, I don't think it's healthy. I think we need a really nice pullback. Something like this or like this would be wonderful. Or like this. We can't just stay up here forever. I think a really nice pullback, especially one that holds a 200-day moving average, would be awesome. And I look at stocks like NVIDIA and I think to myself, I have this new indicator that I wrote that lets me put a labeled anchored VWAP onto a chart. And here you can see I wrote 500 breakout. This is from the point that NVIDIA broke out on volume above the $500 price. And since then, it's tested it here, tested it here, tested it here, and has not tested it again in a long time. But I think if it came back in and tested that, we might be heading for a daily oversold. And that would be a really good long-term buy, in my opinion. I'd be really excited to try for a long there at least, especially, if we get a flush down in there, I'd want to try to buy that. So that's the kind of thing I'm looking at. I'm like, if we get a market flush, if we get a real sell-off, there's names that I'm looking at that I really want to try to get a decent sized position in. And again, I'm going to be looking at some of these to find other spots like that. And so it's been an interesting weekend and day. And so basically, what a change of tone from Friday when we were selling off to gapping down this morning to pushing back to highs. But where does that leave us, right? So look at QQQ. Where did we end up within this range? Right in the middle. And actually, I put on here, if you look on here, the point of control is this pink dashed line. So that's where the most volume was traded within the range that we've been in since November. And where did price close today? It closed just below, actually it closed down here, and then we rallied after hours to almost exactly the point of control. So we're basically in the middle of balance. And so that does not set us up for a great place tomorrow. I like to trade from extremes. I like to buy lows and sell highs, or sell highs and buy lows. And like this, we're right in the middle. And so it's not a great spot to be for the day tomorrow. And I'm not exactly sure what I'm going to do. I think there are a couple of setups that look kind of nice. But I don't know, like even Meta, like this was a really good setup on Meta that I didn't trade because I was fearful this morning. We had TEM, I talked about that, setting a daily high or low. It did, it came right into this brown zone that I was interested in. and I did not buy. And look at this rally. It basically set the daily higher low and did continue up just like I thought it would. And CLS did the same thing, daily higher low, not yet confirmed, but looks really good. Melly, same thing, daily higher low, looks like it's going to confirm. All these names that I said oversold for higher low, they all came in and they all rallied. It's like when the chart tells you that something is the most likely scenario or you should be looking for it, it's like you have to stop thinking about what is the news that's driving the market, because this is how higher lows get set. You got to ignore what the noise and the craziness happening in the market and just look at the price action and play the price action. And I didn't do it. I was fearful. I got overwhelmed by all the things that I was seeing that I just described. And I missed these opportunities that I was looking for, and instead ended up doing like what are essentially scalp trades that won me some money, but kind of a waste of time. Like these are trades that I could be swinging at this point, but instead the only one I'm swinging is TEM, and that's just because I was already in it. So anyway, thought I would just share how I had a good plan and I kind of messed it up with all the stuff that's been going on in the market. And when it comes to what's going to happen tomorrow, I don't actually have any great setups for tomorrow, and I'm going to have to do a lot of chart review tonight and see, is there anything I actually want to trade, thinking from a swing position. But I don't think that's going to be the case, because I guarantee you when I look through this entire list of names that I like that are strong, they are all going to have done exactly what all these other names did, where they all went up. And I know it because when I look at this, I see everything went up. Everything went up together across the whole S&P. So, and those sectors are driven by those names that I just had showed you in that list. So anyway, crazy day. And we'll see where the rest of the week takes us. But if there's like, in my mind, there's really two ways it can go. Let's look at QQQ again. And that is, if for QQQ, the question is this going to be an hourly lower high? And are we going to come back like a 4-hour lower high or an hourly lower high? And are we going to come back down? Or is this just going to push us right back up to the top of range and test the highs again? And I guess we'll see where we open in the morning. And I'm just going to have to play it by ear. Happy trading and good luck tomorrow.